It started with one donation signed by Camilla logged in the system. But when a royal guard followed the receipt, he found no record of it. No ledger, no organization, just a trail of shell companies and an encrypted stamp tied to military clearance. The deeper he dug, the stranger it got: charities that didn't exist, events that never happened, and thousands in royal funds routed straight into something no one had authorized. Because behind the Queen Consort's smiling photos was a shadow network, not of donors, but of power brokers. And before we show you the private conversation he overheard, and the exact moment the system tried to erase the evidence, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, and hit subscribe with the bell icon turned on. Because today wasn't about following protocol, it was about following the money. The rain had softened to mist by the time Sergeant Damon Crestwood keyed into the Royal Finance Annex. Windsor Castle had long since quieted. No footsteps in the corridors, no aides rushing back from receptions, no movement beyond the distant shuffle of custodians, just the hum of old systems processing new data. The annex wasn't on any visitor tour, tucked behind the northern administrative wing. Its sandstone arch bore no royal crest, only a brushed steel plate reading records and routing restricted access. Inside, rows of secured terminals blinked quietly in the low light. It smelled faintly of stone polish and warm circuits. Damon moved like he always did, crisp, measured, no wasted motion. His Coldstream Guard uniform was immaculate, even on night detail. White gloves tucked under one arm as he crossed to his usual desk near the back, where the donation clearance queue fed directly from the Royal Secretariat's ledger. His role wasn't ceremonial. Not here. It was what the household now called internal integrity liaison. A quiet fusion of security and oversight, watching what came in, watching harder what went out. He sat, logged in, brought up the past week's patronage disbursements. Most were routine, known charities, clear routing, matching event logs. But one batch caught his eye. 10 transfers made in the Queen Consort's name over the span of a single week, all to different regional organizations. Different names, different missions, but the same back-end routing code. He frowned. That wasn't normal. UK philanthropic codes were unique per organization. Even umbrella charities used sub-coded branches. But this routing signature wasn't just shared. It was identical. An internal wallet hash untraceable to any registered nonprofit. He clicked deeper. The listed events matched recent headlines. A youth literacy pledge in Birmingham. A rural arts grant in Yorkshire. A restoration push for an old war memorial, all outwardly noble. But the funds, they all vanished into a shadowed shell, as if laundered through goodwill. Damon tapped the desk, eyes narrowing. He flagged the transfers. Not for suspicion, not yet. Just review. A red tab appeared next to the entries. A notification logged silently to the review queue. Behind him, the door creaked open. An older man in gray maintenance coveralls wheeled in a mop trolley. He nodded at Damon, then glanced at the screen. "Still on donations?" he asked casually. Damon nodded once. The man squinted at the numbers. "Those aren't charity routing numbers, son. I did mod logistics back in '92. Those look like parliamentary tags." Damon paused. He turned back slowly, reopened Camilla's latest funding bundle titled Youth Literacy Initiative, QL47. The same code appeared again. Same unregistered wallet, same discrete looping route, same eerie silence in the logs. His screen dimmed slightly as the system queued the next file. But Damon didn't look away. Something wasn't right. He leaned forward, fingers tightening around the mouse. He wasn't looking at a donation. He was looking at a pattern, a quiet, elegant redirection of power, hiding in plain sight, and it had just been signed off under Queen Camilla's name. Damon keyed into the Royal Household Archive at a slightly faster rhythm than usual, not rushed. He didn't rush, but sharpened, focused. The kind of pace that came when a detail lodged itself too firmly to ignore. He pulled up the suspicious routing ID and ran it through the internal search engine. The system blinked once, then returned a single line. No record found, no record, no placeholder, no historical entry, no redacted link, nothing that wasn't possible. Every donation logged under a senior royal's name, even those later voided, produced an archival stub. Even errors created correction tags. But this was a ghost entry wearing a crown signature. He tried again, this time running a parallel search through the Finance Annex's physical archive catalog. The metal drawers clattered softly as he slid one open and thumb-med past labeled folders. Heritage Trust Fund, Borough Initiatives. Camilla Patronage Events. Nothing matched. He reopened the last 5 reports. There it was again. Camilla's Rural Outreach Fund transfer, same back-end wallet. The hospice renovation grant, same signature. The Heritage Choir sponsorship, publicized heavily, complete with photos of smiling children. Yet the money had vanished into the same unregistered funnel, every one of them publicly associated with her name. Every one of them on paper, clean. Every one of them rooted into the same dark corridor of money, Damon muttered under his breath. Someone's using her patronage as a cover. Not an accusation, a fact, if these patterns held. He printed a physical ledger of the 10 most recent transfers, the machine whirring quietly in the corner. As the pages slid out, something caught his eye. A faint, almost invisible, QR-style routing mark in the bottom corner of each print. That wasn't standard royal donation receipts, used alphanumeric stamps, not scannable codes, and certainly nothing that traced outwards. He brought the paper closer to the terminal light, tilting it slightly. The code shimmered faintly, almost like it was intentionally under-inked. He lifted his phone, scanned it. Access restricted. MOD encryption tier 2. Damon froze. Why would a public donation receipt contain MOD tier encryption? Why would a literacy event ledger lock itself behind defense-grade clearance? He scanned again. Same result. The hair on the back of his neck prickled. He turned the page and scanned the second code. Same encryption. Third, same. Whoever embedded these tags didn't expect anyone at Windsor to scan them. They were designed to be invisible in plain sight. A private pipeline buried inside a public donation trail. He sat back, heart steady but heavy, absorbing the implication. This wasn't sloppy paperwork. This wasn't an accounting error. This was a structure, a shadow pathway, a funnel that someone had engineered using Camilla's philanthropic banner as the storefront, and whoever built it had tied it to defense encryption. The threat wasn't theoretical anymore. It was real, and it was already inside Windsor's walls. The next morning came without sunlight. Windsor's east windows glowed dull gray, the sky thick with overcast as a light wind pushed damp air through the hedged perimeter. In the Royal Finance Annex, the warm light from Damon's desk lamp hadn't dimmed all night. By mid-morning, he'd requested a discreet in-person consult with the Treasury. It was granted without questions. Elena Marsh arrived just past 11, wrapped in a charcoal coat and thin navy scarf. Her badge clipped just below her collar, Royal Accounts Liaison, HM Treasury. She moved with the kind of quiet urgency reserved for people who weren't new to institutional messes. Damon met her in a side room used for archival coordination. No windows, just a long table, bare walls, and a single console screen. She didn't sit, just scanned the printouts he handed her in steady silence, eyes flicking across routing codes, event titles, and ledger columns. These routing signatures, she said at last, tapping the faint numbers printed along the bottom margin. They don't belong to charities. Damon waited. They belong to advisory councils, internal government ones, mostly policy accelerators and strategic dialogue groups. He frowned. They're not supposed to receive royal-linked funds. No, she replied. They're not. That would be a conflict of constitutional neutrality. She circled one donation with her pen, Northlight Advisory Trust, routed through a shell named Literacy Futures UK. This organization doesn't exist on the National Grant Registry, not as a non-profit, not even as a commercial consultancy. It's a ghost front. Damon leaned forward. So, someone's laundering political influence under Camilla's patronage. Elena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she folded the page once and asked quietly, "Who else knows you're looking at this?" "No one." "Keep it that way." He held her gaze. "These groups," she continued, "don't operate in isolation. Northlight. I've heard whispers in Treasury corridors. Think tank endorsements, access brokering. Some of them have friends in Parliament, some of them have friends in Cabinet." She turned back to the screen and initiated a sanitized query. Just one donation record from Camilla's recent event, stripped of detail, but flagged for database verification. It processed. Then the screen flickered. Access interrupted. Redaction attempt detected, source unknown. Damon stepped forward, but Elena was already typing. The screen flashed once more and reverted to standby. She exhaled slowly. That didn't come from our end. Someone tried to delete the record. Not delete, obscure it. Strip the tag and route it to a false archive shell. That's ministry subversion. She looked up. Someone is watching this very closely. Damon's face didn't change, but his voice lowered. Then we keep it off the record. He turned toward the printer again, selected 4 of the flagged documents, and activated a hard copy burn to bypass digital systems entirely. The paper slid out, warm, crisp, quietly damning. Elena accepted the pages with a nod. "I'll open an off-book folder, but you need to be careful." Damon looked her dead in the eye. "I am." And now he knew this wasn't just a funding irregularity. It was a power play. And the only question left was, did Queen Camilla know exactly what she was enabling? Or had she become the figurehead of something she couldn't control? By the time the first guests began to arrive at Windsor's Orrery, the drizzle had turned to sun-filtered haze. The garden paths had been swept, the hedges trimmed to razor symmetry, and a white canopy stretched across the courtyard entrance to shield guests from the remnants of the morning mist. The event was public, ceremonial, part of the Queen Consort's modern patronage initiative, a vaguely defined umbrella celebrating literacy, heritage, and regional arts under a single gilded title. It had been announced with fanfare 2 weeks prior and came bundled with well-timed headlines and smiling press photos. To the public, it was charity. To insiders, it was optics. Sergeant Damon Crestwood stood posted along the western interior path, just outside the reception foyer. His scarlet Coldstream tunic was immaculate, his tall black bear-skin hat casting a narrow shadow across his eyes. He was assigned to perimeter movement tracking, essentially watching entry and egress patterns, noting high-profile arrivals, a routine posting, except nothing felt routine anymore. He stood in silence, watching as a procession of donors, trustees, regional figures, and minor lords filtered in. Fluts of elderflower cordial were passed. Laughter drifted under the canopy, and then near the head table he saw them. 3 men, well-dressed, mid-50s. No charity pins on their lapels, no royal accreditation, no listed names on the formal registry at the door. But they sat at the center table close enough to Camilla's seat to be within whisper distance. Damon's gaze sharpened. He tapped his radio once low Crestwood confirming unregistered guests at table 1. No formal ID badges visible. No one responded. But that wasn't the point. He wasn't asking for clearance, he was creating a record. He adjusted position subtly and lifted a miniature optics pen from his belt. One tap captured a static photo of the table. The card nearest the 3 men read, Northlight Advisory. Damon felt it in his chest. Quiet, cold recognition. Back in the finance annex, Northlight had been listed as a routing endpoint for one of the falsely registered charities. The same name Elena had flagged as a political advisory group masquerading as a non-profit. Here they were at the Queen Consort's side. The press cameras didn't know them, but Damon did. Camilla rose shortly after, accepting a soft round of applause as she stepped forward to deliver her remarks. Her tone was measured, practiced, not overly sentimental, not lofty. She spoke of new models for partnership, digitally inclusive outreach, and a bold future for British giving. Damon noted her phrasing carefully. Every line was surgically devoid of specificity. When she thanked her most impactful contributors, she named 3 entities. None of them appeared on the official royal funding list. Damon remained motionless, but his pulse ticked faster behind the calm. He scanned the guest registry again. Those entities all linked to Northlight Advisory through back-end ledger codes. This wasn't coincidence. She was either complicit or being used as the marquee signature for something well beyond ceremony. He watched as she returned to her seat, flanked by the Northlight men, their posture casual, but their eyes anything but. They weren't philanthropists. They were operators. And Damon knew now the next layer wouldn't be on a podium. It would be behind a door. The luncheon had broken into quiet clusters. Most of the guests had migrated toward the orrery's southern terrace, sipping their drinks, exchanging gentle nods, admiring Camilla's displayed donation plaques. To the untrained eye, it was all harmless charm. But Damon Crestwood had stopped pretending hours ago. His shift technically ended at 1, but protocol allowed senior guards to remain in uniform until their replacement arrived. He didn't clock out. He lingered, watching. As the sun slipped behind the clouds again, Damon stepped through one of the inner corridor doors leading back toward the service wing. He moved with deliberate quiet, boots whispering against the tiled floor. He hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but as he turned down the conservator,